Every week, thousands of highly skilled professionals quietly pack up and leave the UK. No protests, no headlines, no breaking news alerts. It's not loud enough to trend, but it's big enough to change everything. Hospitals feel it. Businesses feel it. You feel it when systems slow down, and waiting becomes normal. This isn't about politics or borders. It's about time, stability, and productivity slipping away bit by bit. The people who keep complex systems running aren't shouting. They're simply opting out. And here's the unsettling part. 2026 may be the year this silent exit becomes impossible to ignore. So ask yourself, when experienced professionals leave quietly, who's left to carry the load? And why does this year feel different from all the others? Number 1. The quiet exit. What makes this moment so difficult to spot is that it doesn't look like a crisis at all. There are no packed airports on the evening news, no marches through city centers, no urgent speeches warning of collapse. Skilled professionals don't leave the UK loudly. They leave quietly. One job offer accepted overseas. One family decided not to renew a visa. One senior specialist chooses stability over uncertainty. On paper, nothing dramatic happens. But over time, these small private decisions add up to something far more serious than a single visible shock. Loud migration debates dominate headlines, social media, and political arguments, yet they miss what's actually changing beneath the surface. While attention is pulled toward who is arriving, far less notice is given to who is leaving, and why. Quiet exits don't trigger alarms because systems don't fail instantly. They slow down. Processes stretch. Experience thins out. The absence is subtle, but it spreads everywhere. This is why silent departures are often more damaging than visible crises. A factory closure is obvious. A strike is measurable. But when skilled people step away one by one, the system keeps functioning, just less smoothly each year. Tasks that once took minutes start taking days. Decisions that relied on experience get passed upward, delayed, or avoided entirely. The remaining workforce carries more responsibility with fewer hands, increasing stress and reducing output. Over time, this erosion becomes normalized. Waiting lists lengthen. Admin grows heavier. Expertise is replaced with procedures, checklists, and workarounds. None of this makes headlines, but everyone feels it. The most dangerous part of the quiet exit is timing. By the time the impact becomes obvious, the people who could have prevented it are already gone. Replacing deep experience isn't quick, and it certainly isn't cheap. Systems built on trust, skill, and long-term knowledge can't be repaired overnight. This is why quiet exits reshape countries more profoundly than loud moments of crisis. They don't shock, they drain. And drains are hardest to notice when you're focused on the noise above the surface instead of the slow loss underneath. Number 2. Friction fatigue. Friction fatigue doesn't arrive all at once. It builds quietly through small, repeated obstacles that drain energy over time. Constant rule changes, unclear guidance, delayed decisions, and shifting requirements create a background level of stress that never fully switches off. For skilled professionals, this isn't just frustrating, it's exhausting. Every extra form, every unexpected policy update, every unclear deadline demands attention and mental effort. Over months and years, that effort compounds. What once felt manageable starts to feel heavy, not because the work is harder, but because the environment makes everything take longer than it should. The problem isn't a single rule or delay. It's the accumulation of them. This is exactly how productivity is lost in everyday life. Think about how much focus disappears when your day is filled with constant interruptions, emails, notifications, last-minute changes, unclear instructions. Each interruption seems small, but together they fracture attention and slow progress. Friction fatigue works the same way at a system level. Skilled workers spend more time navigating processes than applying their expertise. Decision-making slows. Initiative fades. Energy that should go into problem-solving gets diverted into compliance and clarification. Over time, people stop pushing for improvement and start doing only what's necessary to get through the day. That's not laziness. It's self-preservation. This is why high-skill workers increasingly prioritize smooth systems over higher pay alone. Money can compensate for long hours, but it can't restore wasted time or mental clarity. Professionals who have spent years building expertise value environments where their effort translates directly into results. Predictable rules, stable expectations, and efficient processes allow them to focus deeply and work at their best. When those conditions disappear, even well-paid roles begin to feel unsustainable. The decision to leave often isn't driven by dissatisfaction with the work itself, but by exhaustion with the constant friction surrounding it. In that sense, friction fatigue becomes a silent signal. It tells skilled people that their time is being drained faster than it can be restored, and once that realization sets in, no salary increase can fully reverse it. Number 3. Mid-career movers. The group most quietly reshaping the UK's future isn't made up of students or early career workers testing their options. It's professionals in their mid-30s to mid-50s, the people at the peak of their expertise, reliability, and output. These are doctors with years of frontline experience, engineers who understand systems inside out, senior technicians, IT specialists, researchers, and managers who know how to keep complex operations running smoothly. They aren't chasing novelty or adventure. They are optimizers. They've already invested decades into building careers, skills, and networks, which means they make decisions carefully and deliberately. When this group starts to move, it's never impulsive. Mid-career professionals plan years because they have to. They're balancing mortgages, children's education, aging parents, and long-term financial security all at once. Instability isn't an inconvenience at this stage of life, it's a risk multiplier. Frequent rule changes, unclear future pathways, or shifting requirements don't just create uncertainty at work, they ripple outward into every part of life. Planning school years, healthcare access, career progression, and retirement becomes harder when the ground keeps moving. For people who value predictability and long-term thinking, that constant uncertainty becomes a signal that the system may not reward patience anymore. Time plays a central role in these decisions. Mid-career professionals are acutely aware that momentum matters. A stalled promotion, a delayed accreditation, or an unclear pathway doesn't just slow progress, it consumes years that can't be recovered. Family time becomes more precious, not less. Long commutes, administrative overload, and endless compliance demands eat into evenings and weekends that were once protected. When alternative systems abroad offer clearer rules, smoother processes, and more reliable timelines, the comparison becomes unavoidable. Leaving isn't framed as escape, it's framed as preservation. Preservation of career momentum, mental energy, and family stability. This is why mid-career movers rarely announce their departure loudly. They plan quietly, execute carefully, and leave once everything is in place. By the time systems notice their absence, the decision has already been made, and often repeated by many others following the same logic. Number 4. Time over money. For highly skilled workers, money eventually stops being the main metric. Time, clarity, and predictability take their place. Early in a career, higher pay can justify longer hours, uncertainty, and inefficiency. But as experience grows, priorities shift. Skilled professionals begin to measure success by how smoothly their effort turns into outcomes. They value environments where decisions are clear, timelines are reliable, and work doesn't spill endlessly into personal life. When systems are stable, productivity feels satisfying. When they aren't, even well-paid roles start to feel expensive in a different way, expensive in time. This is where lost time becomes the real hidden tax. It doesn't show up on payslips or budget statements, but it quietly drains value every day. Time lost to unclear rules, duplicated processes, delayed approvals, and constant administrative friction adds up faster than most people realize. A single wasted hour doesn't seem serious, but repeated across weeks and months, it becomes days of lost focus and energy. For skilled workers, who often replaces high-value work with low-value effort. Instead of solving problems or creating progress, they're chasing updates, rechecking requirements, or adapting to changes that could have been avoided. Over time, this feels less like work and more like erosion. This trade-off is deeply relatable to anyone struggling with time scarcity, which is most adults today. Many viewers recognize the feeling of days filled with activity but little real progress. Notifications interrupting focus. Tasks are stretching longer than they should. Mental energy is spent managing systems rather than doing meaningful work. The frustration isn't about effort, it's about inefficiency. Skilled professionals experience this on a larger scale. When the structure around them wastes time consistently, no salary increase can compensate for the loss of control over their day. Time becomes non-renewable, and predictability becomes priceless. This is why offers that promise smoother systems, clearer expectations, and better time boundaries often outweigh higher pay alone. People aren't leaving because they want more money, they're leaving because they want their time back. And once time becomes the priority, the decision stops being emotional and starts becoming logical. Number 5. System strain. When skilled professionals leave quietly, the immediate impact isn't collapse, it's strain. Work doesn't disappear just because experienced people do. It gets redistributed. Responsibilities are absorbed by those who remain, often without additional time, resources, or authority. At first, this looks manageable. Teams stretch. Individuals work longer hours. Small delays are explained away as temporary. But over time, the strain becomes structural. Systems designed for a certain level of expertise and staffing begin operating beyond their limits, and the pressure spreads outward in ways that are easy to feel but hard to trace. This is where second-order effects start to appear. When expertise thins out, decision-making slows because fewer people feel confident taking responsibility. Tasks move through more layers of approval. Bottlenecks form where experience once smoothed the flow. Simple issues take longer to resolve, not because anyone is careless, but because knowledge gaps require extra checks and workarounds. Services slow down. Backlogs grow. Waiting becomes normalized. From the outside, it can look like inefficiency or mismanagement, but at its core, it's a capacity problem created by gradual loss. The strain doesn't stay confined to one area. When one part of a system slows, others compensate. Administrative work expands to manage risk. Documentation increases to replace judgment. Meetings multiply because clarity is harder to achieve. Each response adds another layer of friction, which further reduces overall productivity. This feedback loop quietly reshapes how systems function. Instead of enabling work, systems begin protecting themselves. People spend more time proving compliance than delivering outcomes. Again, this doesn't happen overnight, which is why it rarely triggers alarms. It's important to keep the focus on systems, not individuals. Most people working within strained systems are doing their best under increasingly difficult conditions. Burnout isn't a personal failure. It's often the predictable result of prolonged overload. System strain isn't caused by a lack of effort, it's caused by mismatched capacity. When skilled departures go unaddressed, the system compensates by demanding more from fewer people. That imbalance is unsustainable, and the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to reverse. Number 6. Productivity drain. National productivity rarely collapses dramatically. It erodes quietly as expertise thins out and systems adapt to doing more with less experience. When skilled professionals leave, the immediate work still gets done, but it takes longer and delivers less value. Decisions that once relied on judgment become dependent on procedures. Tasks that were completed efficiently now require multiple checks. This shift doesn't show up as failure. It shows up as friction. And friction is one of the most effective ways to drain productivity without anyone noticing. The simplest way to see this is through everyday examples. More administration appears because fewer people feel confident making calls. Forms multiply. Documentation expands. Emails replace conversations. Instead of solving problems, workers spend time proving that problems were handled correctly. Output drops not because people are working less, but because more effort is spent navigating the system itself. Processes stretch as approvals stack up, and responsibilities blur. A task that once moved smoothly from start to finish now pauses at multiple points, waiting for sign-off or clarification. Each pause seems reasonable on its own. Together, they slow everything down. This kind of productivity loss doesn't stay confined to businesses or offices. It reaches into daily life. Slower planning approvals affect housing supply. Reduced capacity in healthcare increases waiting times. Delays in infrastructure and public services ripple outward, affecting travel, logistics, and local economies. Even simple interactions start taking longer. Appointments become harder to schedule. Services feel less responsive. None of this feels like a single cause and effect problem, which is why it's often misdiagnosed as inefficiency or poor management. In reality, productivity drain is a system-wide response to lost expertise. When experience leaves, systems compensate by adding controls instead of capacity. The result is more work producing less progress. This affects everyone, not just employers or policymakers. Time is consumed across the economy in small increments. Minutes here, hours there, until it becomes a shared loss. And because the drain is gradual, it's often accepted as the new normal, even as it quietly reduces the quality and speed of everyday life. Number 7. The 2026 shift. 2026 doesn't feel significant because everything suddenly breaks. It feels significant because so many long-standing pressures arrive at the same moment. This is not a collapse year. It's a decision year. Years of incremental changes, temporary fixes, and delayed choices are finally converging, forcing systems and individuals alike to reassess what still works and what no longer does. When people describe 2026 as a turning point, they're reacting to accumulation, not shock. The strain that once felt manageable in isolation now overlaps across work, services, and daily life. One pressure on its own can be absorbed. Policy changes can be adjusted to. Staffing gaps can be covered temporarily. Productivity losses can be offset with extra effort. But when these pressures stack, fewer skilled workers, heavier administrative load, slower processes, and rising global competition for talent, the margin for error disappears. Systems that once relied on flexibility start demanding decisions instead. Continue as before and accept permanent friction, or change direction and rebuild clarity. That's why this year feels different. The option to delay quietly is shrinking. For individuals, especially experienced professionals, 2026 represents a point of evaluation. Not panic, but calculation. People look at their time, energy, and long-term plans and ask whether the current environment supports or drains them. This isn't driven by emotion. It's driven by pattern recognition. When instability lasts long enough, it stops feeling temporary. When uncertainty becomes the default, people stop waiting for clarity and start creating it elsewhere. That's how decision years emerge, not from headlines, but from thousands of private assessments happening at the same time. The most important response to a decision year is awareness, not fear. Panic narrows thinking and accelerates bad choices. Awareness does the opposite. It allows people to step back, understand structural changes, and make deliberate adjustments. Recognizing that 2026 is about convergence rather than collapse brings perspective. It shifts the focus from reacting to every new update toward evaluating what actually matters: time, stability, and long-term sustainability. In that sense, clarity becomes a stabilizing force, not just for individuals, but for systems trying to navigate a turning point without losing control. Number 8. Social media noise. One reason this moment feels more chaotic than it actually is comes down to how information now reaches us. Social media algorithms are not designed to explain slow, complex changes. They are designed to amplify emotion, especially fear, outrage, and urgency. Nuanced issues like skilled migration, productivity loss, or system strain don't spread well unless they're compressed into extreme headlines. As a result, what reaches most people is a distorted version of reality. Dramatic, simplified, and emotionally charged. The algorithm rewards content that shocks, not content that explains. Over time, this creates the sense that everything is constantly on the verge of collapse, even when the real changes are gradual and structural. Viral outrage moves fast because it's easy to digest. A short clip, a bold claim, a clear villain. Structural reality moves slowly because it requires context, patience, and pattern recognition. Skilled professionals leaving quietly doesn't fit neatly into a 30-second video. Productivity erosion doesn't trend because it doesn't happen overnight. System strain isn't photogenic. So instead, attention is pulled toward loud debates and surface-level conflicts, while deeper shifts continue underneath with far less visibility. The danger isn't misinformation alone, it's misallocation of attention. People end up emotionally invested in noise while missing the signals that actually affect long-term stability. For time-poor adults, this creates a serious productivity problem of its own. Constant exposure to alarmist content fragments focuses and increases anxiety without improving understanding. You feel informed, but you're not necessarily clearer. Energy is spent reacting rather than thinking. The brain stays in a low-level alert state, making it harder to process complexity or plan calmly. This mirrors the very system issues discussed earlier. More input, less output. Intentional information consumption becomes essential in this environment. That doesn't mean ignoring the news. It means controlling how and when you engage with it. Fewer sources, chosen deliberately. Less frequent checking, but deeper reading when you do. Prioritizing explanation over reaction. This approach doesn't reduce awareness. It improves it. By stepping back from algorithm-driven urgency, people regain the mental space needed to understand slow-moving changes and make thoughtful decisions. In a time shaped by quiet shifts rather than sudden shocks, clarity comes from resisting noise, not chasing it. Number 9. Personal impact. The effects of skilled professionals leaving the UK aren't abstract, and they aren't limited to boardrooms or policy papers. They show up in everyday life, often in ways that feel disconnected at first. A longer wait for a GP appointment. Delays in specialist referrals. Planning applications are taking months instead of weeks. Home repairs require multiple visits instead of one. Each issue seems minor on its own, but together they shape how daily life feels. Slower, more complicated, and more draining. These are not dramatic failures. They are frictions that quietly consume time and patience. Healthcare is one of the clearest examples. When experienced staff leave, remaining teams stretch to cover gaps. Appointment availability tightens. Administrative steps increase to manage risk. Patients spend more time waiting, calling, and following up. The same pattern appears in housing and local services. Fewer planners, inspectors, and technical specialists mean more backlogs and longer timelines. Projects stall not because anyone is unwilling to help, but because capacity has thinned. What once felt routine starts requiring persistence and repeated effort. These small delays accumulate into daily frustration. A single postponed appointment might be manageable, but repeated delays force people to reorganize workdays, take extra time off, or chase updates that shouldn't be necessary. Time that could be spent productively or with family gets absorbed by follow-ups and rescheduling. Over weeks and months, this creates a sense of constant drag. Life feels busier without feeling more productive. The emotional cost isn't panic, it's fatigue. It's important to stay grounded here. This isn't about blame or incompetence. Most people working in strained systems are doing their best under increasing pressure. The issue is structural. When expertise quietly leaves, systems adapt by slowing down and adding safeguards, not by improving speed or clarity. For the public, the result is subtle but persistent friction. Understanding this connection helps reframe everyday frustrations. They're not random, and they're not imagined. They're signals of systems operating with less experience than they were built to rely on, and that reality touches everyone, one delayed task at a time. Number 10. Calm awareness. In periods of slow but meaningful change, the most effective response is not constant vigilance, it's calm awareness. Constant checking creates the illusion of control, but in reality, it fragments attention and amplifies anxiety. When every update is treated as urgent, nothing is processed properly. Thoughtful monitoring works differently. It recognizes that structural shifts unfold over months and years, not hours. Staying informed doesn't require reacting to every headline. It requires understanding patterns as they form. This approach preserves mental energy and allows people to respond with intention rather than impulse. Low-effort habits make this possible. Instead of daily news consumption, scheduled check-ins reduce cognitive load while maintaining clarity. A weekly or bi-weekly review of trusted sources is often enough to stay current without becoming overwhelmed. Long-form analysis provides context that short updates can't. Choosing fewer, higher-quality input filters reduces noise before it reaches your attention. This isn't disengagement, it's optimization. Just as productivity improves when distractions are reduced, awareness improves when information is curated. Another powerful habit is separating signal from speculation. Not every prediction deserves equal weight, and not every opinion reflects reality. Calm awareness prioritizes confirmed developments over commentary. It focuses on what has changed, not what might change. This helps prevent emotional reactions to hypothetical scenarios that never materialize. Over time, this discipline builds confidence. You stop feeling behind, even when you're checking less often, because your understanding is deeper and more stable. The message here is one of control, not complacency. You cannot control every system-level shift, but you can control how much mental space it occupies. You can decide when to pay attention and when to step back. In a world where quiet changes matter more than loud moments, clarity becomes a personal advantage. Calm awareness restores perspective. It allows people to adapt without panic, plan without fear, and remain grounded even as conditions evolve. That balance, informed but not overwhelmed, is what turns uncertainty into something manageable rather than consuming. If skilled people quietly leave, who quietly carries the load? And where do you feel it most in your own life? I'd really value your perspective, especially real experiences that don't make headlines. If this analysis helped you see the bigger picture, take a moment to watch the previous video on the channel. It connects directly to what we discussed today. We put a great deal of time and care into breaking these issues down calmly and clearly, so if you find this kind of structured insight useful, please support the channel by subscribing. It truly is just one click, and it helps us keep doing this work.